Most people plan for what happens to their money after they pass away, but fewer think about what happens to their digital footprint. From crypto wallets to cloud photo storage to your email and Facebook accounts, your digital life can become a digital mess for your heirs if it's not handled properly. The value of these assets, both emotional and financial, is too great to leave to chance. Today, we're breaking down what happens to your digital assets when you die and how to make things easier for the people that you love. Spencer, digital assets are becoming more ubiquitous in our world today. I think about things that we had when I was a kid, physical photo albums, actual pictures that you printed. The reality is today, most of those assets are digital, whether it is on an online hard drive, whether it's in the cloud or on a physical hard drive. The reality is our digital life has become so pronounced that we really need to plan for it in our estate planning. So what are some things that we need to think about kind of on a broad level perspective before we dive into some nuance here?
Well, there is significant value there. And I think for most of us, it's just as you said, if you walk up the stairs of my father-in-law and mother-in-law's home, you see all of these photos of different generations of family. And it's probably 5 generations of family, that you look back and you can see each, great-grandparent and grandparent and so on and so forth through there. And of course, there weren't as many photos back in the 1800s and early 1900s, but that was a way that the family lineage was passed on. You might have had, a Bible, for instance, that was passed down from one generation to the next that would have recorded all of the births and the deaths and key moments of life and such that would have also had significant value, or other kind of papers. But it would have been a small stack, of those that might have been handed down. Well, now, if you're like me, you've got 17,000 photos or something crazy, that continue to build day by day, because, I have a couple of children that just love to grab my phone and start clicking photos, of the family dog and other things every day. So, even sorting through that, I think, would be a mess. But when we think in all seriousness about a lot of the things that, if we were trying to pass on mementos, or we were trying to pass on things to our children, it's going to be in the cloud. They're not even going to keep a lot of the school projects anymore in a hard copy form. I look back and I can go to my parents' home and they've got, my project in 7th grade when I figured out the probability of the first time going around a Monopoly board and, the probability of landing on any one of those different properties. It's a physical board that has a probability listed and the calculation that I used. And it, was held because that was kind of a novel and unique, project or whatever. Yeah. It's going to go into the fire, I'm sure, when I pass away. But at any rate, there are things like that instead of them being kept by parents or grandparents because they have some sentimental value, well, now they're just in the cloud because you don't want to have the storage space, for those, and they're not all that special. Let's be honest. That Monopoly board, not all that special. What we have to recognize is there's so much of that now, and there's also an ease of access to all kinds of other elements in our digital lives. So being able to connect, for instance, if you have someone pass away, being able to connect with all of their friends through their Facebook account very efficiently and say, okay, mom, dad passed away, and do that, and tell everyone about the receiving of friends and funeral information, for instance, can make life so much easier. Right. But it requires a level of forethought and a level of planning to be able to hand those off specifically. So again, high emotional value. And two, we're getting to a point more and more where people have things like crypto wallets, where there is a real financial worth there too. If it's surrendered, if it's not handled properly, it goes into the ether. There is nothing that you get. It's binary. You get the value or you don't, based on the fact that do you have the password or do you not? Do you know the steps to get into this account or not? So very, very different than what we had even 30 years ago.
Well, and oftentimes these are not things that are specifically mentioned in wills or trusts that can make it efficient for your heirs to handle those things. And I think a lot of times, especially I think about a friend that passed away in his mid 40s. He was in good health and then got sick quickly and deteriorated quickly. And getting into his computer to be able to access those things was really challenging. And so I think just being proactive is going to be the big key piece that we come back to really on any estate planning thing. We need to be proactive, but really, especially as we think about these digital assets and digital pieces to our lives. So when we think about that, we've got in these digital assets, some of them, I think about my iPhone. I'm able to essentially say, here is the contact where if something happened to me, my wife is the emergency contact. She is allowed to get into my digital safe, essentially, that is my phone. But I think about all of these other pieces that are our financial life, our banks, our credit union, our investment accounts. They all have as well behind a layer of security, a multi-factor authentication. So our digital lives, as it becomes bigger and bigger, it also becomes more and more complex because everybody's wanting to keep it very secure, which makes it really challenging. So how do we help clients walk through that digital complexity?
Well, one of the things is we need to have someone who's trusted. And obviously, if we have a couple that is working together on this, then we've got a higher likelihood that one passes away, one survives, and then we can pass down that information. But we need to have someone that knows where to go and has the passwords, has the capability to get in. A lot of our clients and my family included will use a service that will allow all of the passwords to be consolidated behind a firewall. And so if you can get into that, then you have access to it, but there's a tremendous amount of complexity to that password and such. So if we have spouses that are on the same page and can both access all those things, why now, if one spouse passes away, the other one has access automatically to email and Facebook and all the different pieces and can pull all of that information should it be necessary, along with bank account, investments accounts, all those kinds of things. If we don't have that consolidated, then we might be in trouble.
Right.
Because we do work with folks or have come across folks who don't share that level of information. So if they pass away, good luck.
Yeah.
There is a real difficulty in accessing anything like a credit card or a bank statement or other kinds of things. So even if there is a payable on death designation there, it doesn't mean that the beneficiary is immediately going to be able to get in and use those resources. It just means that once the death certificate is given to the bank or credit union, that account will be paid out to a particular beneficiary. But that oftentimes takes weeks.
Right.
So if you want immediate access, again, that's a different thing. So what typically is helpful is to be able to have a plan that's put together and a consolidated source for those passwords that is really, really well encrypted and defended there. But also with the recognition that doesn't solve everything.
Right.
So just because you can log in to a particular company doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have full access forever, because if they get wind that one person passes away, they can shut down that account if you're not listed on that as a successor or on that as the trusted contact or whatever their verbiage is within their documents.
Right.
One great example on this is tech companies. You talked about Apple, but you have Facebook, you have Google, you have others that they're basically not going to play nice with your heirs. They're not going to play nice with your executor or your power of attorney. They're only going to play nice with the people that you've listed. Can you talk through a little bit that?
I think the reality, Spencer, is a lot of these companies, whether they are just trying to show that they actually care about your privacy or they're trying to cover their own skin, a lot of them have really strict privacy policies. And with really strict privacy policies come levels of regulation that they're trying to jump through to say, hey, I need you to prove X, Y, Z, and then ABC to show me that you are this person's heir, that there's a death certificate, that there's this, that, and the other to get access. And so really, again, coming back to this idea, states may be making it a little bit easier if you are the executor of that person's estate to be able to gain access. But again, having that ability to say, hey, this is my heir, whether it's on platform, off platform, having those pieces in place where that you can inform Facebook or an email account provider or a bank, it just really helps out in the long run to have that really clearly written out to go along with the death certificate. Legislation can really only go so far if these companies are really stringent on those privacy policies.
Well, and if they're pushing back, I mean, you're going to at some point just say it's not worth it. I'm not going to continue to hire my attorney to, try to deal with Google or with whoever might be holding all of those pictures, whether it be Apple or Google or, what have you. So, being able to make sure that okay, who are the tech companies that I really need to be mindful of listing a succession plan.
Yes.
There, because it's not all of them. It's not like, you have your pest control company come in and they set up a online portal. It feels like every service provider now wants you to go through their online portal. Even if you see a doctor, a specialist, they're going to want you to set up, user access through a portal. Those folks don't tend to be the ones that you want to pay the most attention to because there's not as much information there. Now, obviously, you'd like to keep all of that data and you'd like to make sure that you document, particularly on the medical side, what's important there and that your primary physician has all of that information. But there are a lot of those accounts that are not going to ever be tapped into again, probably by yourself.
Right.
But there are others, there are probably a handful, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 that you really need to pay attention to. So doing a digital inventory is really helpful because most of us, we have some platform that keeps our pictures.
Yep.
We have some platform that is our primary financial hub, as a bank or credit union. We have some platform that we're looking at that might hold our investments, there. And those 3 in particular, along with our email, would be key parts of that hub. Now, obviously, if you also are one of these people that loves to be on social media, I am not among those. So I do not connect via Facebook or Snapchat or whatever, they're using these days. But if that is a primary means with which you are relating to others and is kind of a hub of your relational activity, then that would be another one that you would want to pass on to that loved one, make sure that they have access to that. But again, if we think about some of those core level, it's got to be your email, it's got to be wherever you have photos, and it's got to be any kind of financial either savings or investment or banking, credit card types of accounts that you've got to pass on to them.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that really dovetails into this next piece of designating someone to manage that digital estate. And you can do this within your estate plan, naming a digital executor. Again, if we think about, okay, what are those key things? Those emails, photos, videos, any of those things that your heirs will actually want. I think about like my kids, they may want my Chipotle rewards, but getting an extra bowl of chips is not going to be as important as seeing those photos. So really thinking about, okay, have I legally appointed a digital executor? Those are things that, again, that can just be helpful. Again, so when you go to the Google or the Apple, if you weren't listed as the successor, you can say, hey, but I am the digital executor of this estate. And having some sort of a legal representation on your behalf that says, hey, mom or dad, or I appoint my son or daughter to be able to access this really goes a long way with those larger companies. So you want to talk about the next one, the crypto wallet. This one is something that is, again, as we think about financial windfall, could be really substantial, but one key that is off could go from you either get the asset or you don't. Right. So talk us through what you should do if you hold crypto assets.
Well, there's no forgot password for crypto wallets. So you have to be really careful. Naming a beneficiary oftentimes isn't enough because if they don't have the technical credentials, what good does that do you? I mean, you have stories of these people who they are the owner of the asset. It's on a hard drive. They forgot the password and now they can't access it and it's gone forever. So you think about that and the likelihood that the password then is passed along is even less. So there's all kinds of different issues here. oftentimes as folks age, if they can consolidate those resources into a place where it's much easier, like a crypto-specific custodian that may be able to allow you to designate a trusted contact or executor would be far easier than some of the other platforms that it's kind of like the wild, wild west, and you just have this encrypted password and, good luck because you've got 10 tries to type it in there. And if you don't get it within those 10 tries, it's gone forever. Right. Not a good type of situation there. So want to be really thoughtful on that and make sure that there is a plan if you have those crypto assets.
Right. And clients, we want to come back and say crypto is not going to be our first suggestion, second suggestion, maybe even thousandth suggestion of things that you should invest in. It is the wild west of finance. But we just want to say, if those are assets that are held in your estate, you want to be really cognizant of how you're passing those along.
Exactly.
The last one is just, again, you talked about it briefly, but creating a digital asset inventory. Anything you want to mention on that before we move on?
No, I think if you look at it and you just spend a few minutes to reflect on it. I mean, spending 5 minutes to reflect on what are the key ones, and then maybe even comparing it to a friend's and saying, what am I missing here, can go a long way. Because then you can surface the conversation with a loved one, whether that's a spouse or son or daughter or friend who will be stepping into that role should something happen to you, and making sure that they know, okay, here's where the passwords are, here's how you would gain access to that, can make things so much easier and save literally dozens, if not hundreds of hours to that loved one as they're going through that grieving process for you, because they're going to want the photos. They're going to want, access to these different things that were, meaningful, or the financial, elements to help pay for, bills that you may have accrued in the last month of life or something like that.
Right. Well, great. Thanks, Spencer, for walking us through this idea of digital asset inventory and how do we help our heirs really handle those accounts. Clients, if you have questions about any of this or want to walk through a digital asset inventory with us, we would love to do that with you. As always, feel free to leave comments down below, and we'll see you again next time. If you like these financial planning videos, please share with a friend, and if you have questions, go to our website at seriousretirement.com. This content was provided by Retirement Planning Services. We are located in Knoxville, Tennessee. You can visit our website at seriousretirement.com. The information in this recording is intended for general educational and informational purposes only, and should not be construed as investment advisory, financial planning, legal, tax, or other professional advice based on your specific situation. Please consult with your professional advisor before taking any action based on its contents. Advisory services offered through Retirement Planning Services, LLC.